Change leaders recognize emerging realities. Leadership learning. On 2nd January 1905, Japan's victory at Port Arthur marked Russia's collapse under strategic misjudgment, operational pressures, and evolving military realities. The Russian command entered the conflict with a belief in the superiority of its fortifications and naval presence, assuming that Port Arthur's defenses were strong enough to withstand any prolonged assault. This confidence was reinforced by the port's reputation as one of the most heavily fortified positions in the world, defended by close to 50,000 men and more than 500 artillery pieces. The surrounding terrain had been shaped into a multi-layered defensive system designed to repel any sustained attack. Japanese forces approached the campaign with meticulous preparation, coordinated land and naval operations, and a willingness to adapt tactics as conditions evolved. Their use of heavy artillery, including 28-centimeter howitzers capable of firing nearly 500-pound shells over long distances, decisively degraded Russian positions. The Japanese also employed trench systems, searchlights, tactical radio signaling, and early forms of radio jamming, technologies that foreshadowed the industrialized warfare of the First World War. The fall of Port Arthur delivered a profound psychological shock to the international system, marking the first modern defeat of a European empire by an Asian power. As the siege progressed, deteriorating supplies, declining morale, and fractured command structures compounded the garrison's isolation. The Japanese naval blockade prevented effective reinforcement or evacuation, leaving defenders increasingly cut off. Internal disagreements among Russian commanders and conflicting assessments of the situation further weakened cohesion under sustained pressure. The death of General Roman Kondratenko, one of the most capable Russian officers, significantly reduced the garrison's ability to resist. The eventual decision to surrender was driven by humanitarian concerns, recognizing that continued resistance would result in unnecessary suffering for soldiers and civilians alike. In the broader context of the Russo-Japanese War, Japan's strategic planning, rapid mobilization, and unified command structure contrasted sharply with Russia's logistical difficulties, slower decision-making, and persistent underestimation of its opponent. The fall of Port Arthur shifted momentum decisively in Japan's favor and undermined Russian confidence. It contributed to domestic unrest within Russia, exposing weaknesses in governance, military organization, and strategic foresight, and feeding the discontent that would erupt in the 1905 revolution. Its legacy continues to inform how leadership judgment, preparation, and awareness determine outcomes when realities shift faster than assumptions. Change leadership lessons. These historical dynamics mirror the challenges leaders face when organizational assumptions collide with evolving competitive realities. The fall of Port Arthur reveals enduring truths about how leaders respond when reality diverges from belief. Leaders of change recognize that relying on outdated assumptions rather than current evidence allows external threats to grow unnoticed. They understand that genuine capability development matters more than inherited prestige when competing in shifting environments. Change leaders know that disciplined preparation consistently outperforms rivals who depend on past success instead of present readiness. They accept that confronting uncomfortable realities early prevents avoidable crises created by reassuring internal narratives. Leaders of change update their strategic understanding as conditions evolve to protect their organizations from stagnation driven by rigid beliefs. Summary leadership quote. Change demands leaders who stay aware, prepare with discipline, act with unity, adapt with purpose, and respond with courage when circumstances move beyond inherited assumptions. Application. Change leadership responsibility 1. Articulate a change vision. The fall of Port Arthur demonstrates how organizations falter when leaders articulate futures based on inherited assumptions rather than emerging realities. A clear change vision requires leaders to define a credible and evidence-informed future before pressure forces reaction. When leaders articulate a vision grounded in reality, they create the conditions for coherence, discipline, and alignment across the organization. Such a vision does not deny uncertainty or complexity. Instead, it acknowledges them while remaining unequivocal about the future the organization is committed to deliver. A disciplined change vision prevents assumption-driven failure by forcing leaders to confront reality before it confronts them. This clarity becomes the reference point that guides judgment, exposes contradictions, and prevents drift as conditions evolve. Leadership of change demands that leaders use this vision to anchor decisions, maintain direction, and ensure organizational energy is directed toward a future shaped by awareness rather than assumption. When leaders fulfill this responsibility with integrity, they strengthen resilience and ensure action remains aligned with reality. Leadership of change. Final thoughts. Enduring transformation is not sustained by momentum alone, but by leadership grounded in judgment as uncertainty intensifies. As AI and emerging technologies reshape organizational environments at an accelerating pace, the ability to recognize reality and articulate clear direction becomes a defining leadership responsibility. Leaders who remain anchored to a credible future despite ambiguity create the conditions for confidence, alignment, and sustained organizational progress. Find out more: Change Management Leadership, Leadership of Change, Volume 4,